Deal of the week number 185, March 27th, 2000. This week's deal took place during the recent ACBL North American Championships in Cincinnati, Ohio. Complete coverage of the event. Okay, great. This week's deal features a pretty defense found by Bridgebase Incorporated president Fred Gittleman and his partner Brad Moss. This deal was played during the first qualifying session of the North American Swiss teams. Fred and Brad, along with teammates Reese Milner, Mark Jacobus, and Mike Purcell, eventually finished 5th in the event. Way to go them. So they're playing 5-handed with a sponsor. I guess Jacobus maybe played with Milner half and Purcell half, I'm not sure. But, alright, let's take a look at the hand. So, South dealt an open 1 spade. North's questionable preemptive raise to 3 spades became the final contract. We consider 3 spades questionable because of North's flat distribution and his high defense to offense ratio. We prefer simple 2 spades, regardless of what the law of total tricks has to say about the matter. I tend to agree with Fred on these points that I think we even had a hand like this maybe yesterday, where, 4 trumps, no shortness, a bunch of defensive cards that if the opponents do end up getting to like 3 of a suit, you might be able to double them and to beat them a trick or 2. Well, I guess it imps. Maybe it's not that relevant, but like if they get to 3 diamonds or something and you pass it out and it goes down 1, it's not such a big deal being plus 50 versus plus 110 on the board. But obviously the difference between plus 110 and minus 50 is, a little bit more of an issue. Brad had to decide an opening lead and had very little to go on from the auction. What card do you think Brad led from the west hand? Fred and Brad used 3rd and 5th best leads against suit contracts. So my belief in general on a lot of these types of hands is to when you have not much to go on, you think about your high card values and how much your partner's likely to produce. So here, with Brad having a 6 count, the opponent's stopping short of game, his partner's likely to have quite a few values. That makes it a lot more attractive to lead from your strength than it does to lead from, weakness, for example. Like, a robot here might lead a trump or, let's say a club or something like that from the west hand. But I strongly suspect Brad will lead a diamond. So what they say, they're playing 3rd and 5th best leads, so I expect the 5 of diamonds to be the lead that Brad selected. Just because, once again, with your partner having a bunch of values, they're likely to have values in every suit, and therefore when you have a bunch of values as well, you're much more likely to set up tricks. And it's less likely to cost a trick, is maybe more important. If your partner had Queen 3rd of hearts opposite Jack 9 3rd, some percentage of the time you're going to blow a trick by leading the 7 of hearts. Whereas if partner has Queen 3rd of diamonds, you're actually pretty happy at leading a diamond. Yeah, there are some rare cases where diamonds are like 4-2 between the opponent's hand and they can actually set up the 10, but that's a lot less likely than, a club or a heart actually blowing a trick. So a diamond actually looks like a safer lead to me than any of the other suits. Let's see if we're right first. Yeah, so this is what Brad led. But yeah, for this reason, it looks like a diamond is actually a safer lead than a club, a heart. I mean, a spade is very passive and, probably fairly safe. But choosing between the non-trump suits, I like the diamond lead best. So does Brad. He agrees. Brad characteristically chose to make an aggressive opening lead, the 5 of diamonds. Some players would think... Okay, we'll get into it now. Let's see if Fred agrees with me. Some players would think that a heart or a club lead would be safer than a diamond. Some players would lead a trump in an attempt to be completely passive. There's no right or wrong answer here, but Brad prefers to lead from his strength against auctions such as this one. It turned out that his diamond lead was the start of a very pretty defense. So it looks like Fred didn't really get into all the details, but I do kind of suspect that if Brad had an extra ace in his hand, he might have gone with a more passive opening lead, like even a trump. But the fact that he only had 6 high card points, I think, makes a diamond very clear and stand out on this deal in particular. Declare called for a low diamond from dummy. If Fred had to decide which diamond to play from the east hand, think about which card you would play from east. So again, this is a fairly straightforward choice, I would say. If the 5 of diamonds happens to be 5th best, which, I mean, it really can't be, because otherwise Brad would have King, Jack, 10, 8, 5 in the suit, then any of the ace, queen, and 9 would hold the trick. If the 5 of diamonds happens to not be from a 5-card suit, the declare has at least 2 of them, and then it's always safe to play the queen. This is going to be like a little bit of a discovery play on defense, and you often want to do this to get a gauge on where the high cards are, also maybe to find out if you have communication to your partner's hand. And even if declare has the king, it can be important to play the queen because your partner might have led from the jack. Like if Brad's diamonds were jack, 8, 5, 3, he would lead the 5 from that holding. So the queen would provide an entry to partner's hand for possibly leading a club through later in the play. Alright, so Fred plays the queen. I mean, again, this is maybe not something that you get taught in books or that you've seen if you aren't familiar with some of these like expert level card play techniques. But Fred's definitely going to play the queen here for all the reasons that I kind of already mentioned. So if you're familiar with this kind of concept, then this might be obvious to you. Otherwise, maybe it's something new and you can learn a little bit about situations where you might play the queen. You know, you do want to be a little bit careful. Sometimes declare does have the singleton king in this position, so as long as you can rule that out, it's always safe. Sometimes it's even right to play the queen if you're risking a singleton king from declare, because it just gives you a lot of info on defense. Fred chose to play the queen, which won the trick. Fred knew that declare could not have singleton king since the 3 was missing and Brad would have led that card, or the jack if his diamond holding had been jack, 10, 8, 5, 3. There's no danger of losing to singleton king, but there are 2 good reasons for Fred to play the queen at trick 1. 1, if Brad was dealt the king, as was in fact the case, then Fred's play of the queen would let Brad know that Fred could win the second round of diamonds if the play developed in such a way that this seemed like a good idea. If Fred had won the ace instead, Brad would not know about the location of the queen. This is true. You know, it's not as obvious as Fred makes it seem, because sometimes declare will duck if they hold the ace. So when it goes diamond, low, queen, low, it's not so apparent that from West's perspective that your partner has the ace, but it does become a little bit more likely. 2, if declare was dealt king doubleton, then Fred's play the queen would establish the jack as an entry to Brad's hand. Also true. Brad would later be able to gain the lead in diamonds to play club through dummy. This is the main reason why the queen was the right card at trick 1. Yeah, like, this is true, as well as the fact that now Fred knows he can cross to his partner's king at any time he needs to. Fred also had an interesting problem as to what to lead to trick 2. Think about what card you would return as east. Yeah, so I mean, Fred can count 4 defensive tricks, right? He probably takes the ace queen of clubs. I mean, if declare has a singleton club, so be it, but that seems somewhat unlikely. He knows they're scoring at least 2 diamond tricks because partner has led 3rd best from either a 3 or 4 card holding, including the king. Maybe it's important to actually clarify what's going on in the diamond suit first, because if declare had the same type of hand with a doubleton heart and, say, the jack of clubs, then it does seem very important to cash out diamonds right now. And then eventually you'll get your 2 club tricks, otherwise declare could pull trumps, unblock the hearts, cross to dummy and spades, and pitch a diamond loser on the king of hearts, eventually just losing 2 diamonds and 2 clubs. So it seems important to go about cashing diamonds, and for that reason, I like leading back a low diamond here. This will give partner count on the suit. If Fred had ace doubleton remaining, then the normal way to cash out diamonds would be to play ace and another. So when Fred returns the 4 of diamonds, it'll tell Brad that Fred started with ace queen 4th, and then Brad will know whether or not it's important to cash another diamond immediately. So that's my guess. I could see an argument to be made for switching to a high heart to just let partner know. The thing that worries me about a heart switch is partner might have the queen, and now you're just picking that suit up for declare. So I don't really like a heart switch, but I think it would convey the message that, you know, I have strong clubs, basically. No. 4 of diamonds did not come back. Okay. Interesting. Well, you know, one thing that I'm noticing now as I look at Dummy and reconsider this problem that Fred's facing, Dummy's clubs and hearts are identical, and Brad's clubs and hearts are almost identical. So there could be an argument made for, like, when Brad gets in, he won't know what to do. And part of the problem that I can see potentially occurring here is that if Declare is able to strip the diamonds and the hearts, he can play a club to the 10 and pick up the suit for just 2 losers. And I'm sure Fred's thinking about that, and that's what he's concerned with. So I suppose you could say that when we lead back the 4 of diamonds, now partner has to guess what to do about which suit to play next, and that might make things a little bit difficult. That does make a heart switch a little bit more attractive, I suppose. Then again, I still feel like there's this disaster scenario where we switch to hearts or trumps or whatever, you know, something passive, and Declare then just pulls trumps and then cashes hearts to pitch a diamond loser. I would be very nervous that partner has led from King Jack third in the diamond suit, and we really want to cash 3 diamonds immediately. Well, if we're not going to play the 4 of diamonds, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to play the diamond ace. Once again, Fred really wants to put Brad in so that he can play clubs through dummy. So I guess we switch to like the 8 or 6 of hearts. I guess we don't switch to the 8 of hearts. How about a trump? Okay, we've switched to a trump. Fair enough. This does seem like a mistake to me. Now, it's probably not a large mistake, but the thing about a trump is if we play a trump, Declare can always play diamonds themselves. Our partner will win, and then our partner once again will kind of be forced to guess what to do on this trick. Maybe you could argue the 4 of spades is like a suit preference card for clubs as opposed to hearts. Maybe we can argue that the 4 of diamonds would be a suit preference card when Declare exits the diamond 10, for example. But our partner doesn't know that, right? I'm not really convinced that we can actually convey the information we need to let partner know that clubs is the right switch. I think we just have to hope that he works it out based on the play. Anyway, let's see what happened, and then we'll think a little bit more. Fred chose to return the spade 4 trick 2. Fred was able to find this play because he could see that there was a danger if he made the obvious diamond continuation. Can you see why a trump return worked well and how a diamond return would have likely been less effective? Watch how the play continued and you'll understand if you don't already. All right. Declare 1, pulled a second trump, and then exited the diamond 10. Brad won this trick even though he knew that Fred still held the ace. The defense had reached another critical point. This time it was up to Brad to figure out what the deal was all about and what card he could return to defeat the contract. Think about which card you would play as West. Well, I mean, it's one of the 2 jacks, right? Jack of clubs or jack of hearts are really the only logical choices. We need to lead through dummy, and you know, if we played any other club, like the 9, for example, our partner wouldn't be able to read it, so even if it went 9 low, our partner might just play the queen on this trick, which would be kind of a disaster. So you definitely would want to play the jack. I'm guessing Brad got it right because this is in the article, so I'm going to metagame this a little bit, and we're going to pick the jack of clubs. All right. The big question is, how did Brad know to lead a club instead of a heart? We'll get to this. Anyway, Brad found the excellent play of leading the jack of clubs. The 9 would also work technically, but probably not in practice. Brad could also feel the danger that Fred had sensed. He knew that he would not have a chance to gain the lead again. It's true. And he needed to make this lead count. Big question is, how did Brad know to lead a club instead of a heart? The answer is that Fred's play of the diamond 4 in the second round of the suit told Brad to play clubs and not hearts. The diamond 4 was a suit preference signal requesting a club shift. Fred would have followed with the 9 and not the 4 if he was dealt the ace-queen of hearts instead of the ace-queen of clubs. So, yeah, I mean, defense can get really nuanced, and you got to take advantage of all the information that that is being conveyed to you. I do think that the jack of spades is probably a more relevant card, because Declare did pull a second round of trumps. Now, I don't think Declare should have pulled a second round of trumps. I think Declare should have just exited the 10 of diamonds when the 4 of spades came back, and then Brad would kind of be guessing as to what the 4 of spades switch meant. But I don't really see how the 4 of diamonds is a clear suit preference signal. What if Fred had held ace-4 doubleton in the suit? Wouldn't he have to play the 4 to let Brad win the trick? Or was he supposed to overtake the jack with the ace? Maybe technically he should overtake the jack with the ace and then play a third round to clarify what's going on. But I think you put partner under a lot of pressure if you force them to find plays that give you the information you need, as opposed to, being a little bit lenient about signaling and how you defend. Things that might logically make a ton of sense to one person and probably are deducible, but take like multiple steps of deduction to get there. It's really hard to assume that you and your partner are on the same wavelength about these things. So, one step of deduction, I'm probably fine. Like, even playing with a world-class partner on defense, I'm happy to force them to make one step of deduction that seems, somewhat straightforward. But when we get to situations like, oh, why did Fred return a spade and not cash a second diamond? And then, what of his signals or suit preference, or what cards might be forced to, make sure I win tricks? And then what signals might be count, for example. I'm I guess I'm not convinced that what Fred's saying here about the 4 and 9 of diamonds is accurate. But I could be wrong. Anyway, let's see what's going on. Fred and Brad are not one of those pairs that almost always signal suit preference. Their defensive carding philosophy is more along the lines of tell partner what you think he needs to know. So this is actually where I learned this concept on defense, and this, I think, is very rare among defenders in general. Most defenders have very solid agreements about what signals mean in every situation. There are so few defenders who actually play this way. Fred is one that does it, and I wouldn't say I'm a strong believer in telling partner what you think they need to know, but I think that this is a good way to get a feel for how defense should actually work, as opposed to coming up with all of these rules and restrictions about what every sort of signal means in every situation. I mean, I know that bridge players there's a lot of players who just play the game because they like developing systems. And so they really like, working out what mathematically should be the correct signal in every scenario. But I feel like you get a better sense of the game itself and how to go about defense if you follow this philosophy, or generally follow this type of philosophy. So I like the way that Fred goes about defense in this sort of scenario, but I don't think that this is something that most players go along with. Anyway, Fred knew that Brad needed to know which suit to switch to. He said clubs with his diamond 4. So, yeah, I mean, there's probably, at this point in time, there's probably enough information for Brad to work out that clubs is the right switch, or that clubs is much more likely to be the right switch than hearts. And that's really all you need, right? If your partner has a decision to make and they're like 75% one thing and 25% something else, they're going to do the 75% thing 100% of the time, because they're going to try and come up with the thing that works out most often. So it's very, it's very black and white what actually happens at the table, even if the chances between two different things working out are relatively close. As they are here, probably a little bit. But, the 4 of spades followed by the jack, a little bit of a suit preference for the lower suit. The 4 of diamonds might have been a forced card, but if it wasn't, then it's suit preference for the lower suit. Brad has a couple of indications now that clubs is probably the right thing to switch to instead of hearts. So he finds the club switch. Brad trusted Fred to be giving him the information that he needed and defended accordingly. Partnership trust is a wonderful thing. Fred's carding in diamonds told Brad which suit to play. His choice of the jack, instead of a conventional low club, catered to the exact layout. Note that if Brad had returned a small club, the declarer could get home by playing low from the dummy, running it around to the 8, and later playing low to the 10. Declare was now dead. He tried the club king from dummy. Fred won the ace. Now exited with the ace of diamonds. Declare could eliminate hearts and lead a club towards the 10 or whatever sort of club play he wanted to make. 8 of clubs, 9, 10, queen, 7 of clubs is now high. Nice defense. So Declare got the last 2. There's no way Declare could have won 9 tricks given the defense found by Fred and Brad. True. If you did not spot the danger that was referred to earlier, suppose Fred had innocently continued diamonds from the top after winning the lead with his queen. The same position would result if Brad had continued diamonds when he won the second round of the suit. So, yeah, playing the ace of diamonds would have been a pretty big mistake. We did want to put West in to put clubs through once. And so now we'll get to see the end play that results as Declare strips all of the red suits. And because one round of clubs hasn't been played, now Declare can play the club suit himself for one loser. Club, cover the 4 with the 10. East wins, but now Fred is end played. He can't safely force Declare back into hand. A red suit would be a rough sluff. Cashing the ace of clubs would set up the king. So, if Brad had played the jack of clubs on Declare's club play, it wouldn't have helped. Once again, yeah, so Fred's now just going over why king 10 third ups at 3 small is good for one trick when you can organize an end play. Alright, in order for the defense to prevent this end play, it was necessary for both Fred and Brad to spot the danger early in the deal and to defend accordingly. It's not always easy to construct the unseen hands, project how the play might go, and come up with the appropriate countermeasures. All true. Makes it easier if you've been the victim of this sort of end play in the past. Also true. Fred's making a lot of good points. Fred and Brad have been playing bridge long enough that they've seen deals like this one. As soon as they saw the dummy, they knew that there was a potential end play and that their mission was to find a way out of it. Bridge problems are much easier when you've faced similar problems before. Yeah, so Fred didn't really talk about the, am I able to play cards? Kind of the issue with what might happen if we return the 4 of diamonds immediately. So this is what would have happened. Brad would now know that it's incorrect to play a second round of diamonds, but he wouldn't really know which suit to switch to. So we would essentially put partner in, and partner would have a guess to make. Fred's line of play looks like it did a little bit better, because as long as Declare, pulled a second trump, I think Brad gets all the information that he needs to make the right guess. If Declare had played the 10 of diamonds after one round of trumps, Brad would be, I think, in a similar situation. The thing that's really concerning to me, once again, though, is, what if Brad had just led from king jack third and we need to cash 3 rounds of diamonds? But that wasn't the case on this deal. So, it all looks great when the layout you're playing for actually exists. And it happens often enough. As long as you're playing for some sort of layout, you tend to come out ahead quite often.